Hi everyone, welcome. We are going to try to stay efficient and stay on time this evening. We're here for the BES Renovation and Addition project. It's a bond hearing. So we're going to start. Do we have to be really official and do the pledge this evening? Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming this evening. I am Jennifer Strongrain. I am the school board vice chair, and I am also the chair of the BES Addition Renovation Committee. I just want to start the meeting by thanking you all for coming, and also saying that we are going to try to stay on meeting procedure this evening, meaning that we're going to present our project first, then allow for comment, not debate or back and forth, but comment. If you want to comment, please go to the microphone, say your name and your full address, and then you can make your comment, and then we'll move on from there. I would just want to take a minute and thank the committee. We are fortunate to live in a town that is just full of such knowledgeable, caring individuals, and they donated many, many hours into this project, time, hours. So I just wanted to take a minute and recognize the committee. We have Colleen Hunter here this evening, Glenn Dugas, which I always butcher your name, I apologize. We have Ben Martin here this evening, and we have Ryan Gagney here this evening. So thank you all for coming, and I'm now going to hand this over to Dwayne Ford to do the official presentation, because I am not a dumb woman. Thank you, Dwayne.
Hello, everyone. As Jennifer said, my name is Dwayne Ford. I'm the business administrator for SAU 67 and have been the business administrator in Bow since 2005. So without further ado, we'll get started. Just a little backup in history. We've been talking about renovations and work to be done at the elementary school since about 2013 when we put that into the town CIP. Town CIP, the school participates in that, and this was a project that we felt was important enough, so we included it in that. And at the time, it was what I would call an infrastructure project. It was similar to the renovation that we did at Bow Memorial School, roof, HVAC, sprinkler system. When we did the Memorial School renovation, if you walked in the building, we spent $4 million on that project, and you really didn't see any difference in the building. It was all above your head. New lighting, all of the stuff was kind of infrastructure things. So that was what we were talking about with this project. It's morphed several times. There's been a lot of things that have been talked about and proposed that haven't made the project, as you'll see later. But so since we've been talking about it for a while, we wanted to do a kind of a traditional, kind of old school construction project where you ask for some money for some design work, do the design, put the project out into the field, get actual prices, ask for that at the next year's annual meeting, and you kind of have those known prices. We were going to do those design costs at the 2020 March annual meeting. If you'll remember, right before our annual meeting that year, the world shut down. Our meeting was postponed. We worked very hard to have a meeting that year, did drive-through voting that year, but we took this project off the table, the design fees, and because it was a complex meeting that was very different than anything we had ever done. So that was a setback, obviously. Other things came up, other budgets. We negotiated a new teacher contract, negotiated an area agreement, so the project kind of took a back seat to certain things, but we felt like the time was right, and it's now in front of you. That project this project is also not just an infrastructure project anymore. It's a space project, both space for today and for the future, and we'll talk about that in a couple slides. Jennifer talked about the committee, so let me just do that. Here's the full membership of the committee, and super happy that some of the committee members are here today. I mean, Jennifer said it right. I mean, there's not a meeting that we have that I don't go in and come out of it having learned something. It's just great people. We're very lucky to have had public safety as part of our committee. We've had the fire chief who's attended basically every meeting. You know, Chief Berman is a huge resource, and you'll see there's certain things that are part of the project that deal very, very much with his department in town. So having emergency management there, having police, has been very helpful. 2 school board members participating, representative from past and current select boards. It's really been a great group, and they've helped immensely. So here we go. The committee helped define the scope of the project. At one point, we had about 50 items that were being considered and talked about, from essential items that we absolutely had to do that are still up here to, well, that would be really nice to have. It'd be super nice to have a secondary access road to that property. That's not part of this project anymore, but we talked about it for a while. So things like that came off. You refined the list. In fact, the document that you have in front of you, there's a couple things on there that have actually been removed further. But here's what this project currently entails. Starting with a new sprinkler system. It's a 63,000 square foot building. We're talking about adding an additional 13,000 square foot of instructional space. It has no sprinkler. That is not something that you could do today. There's no way you can build an educational school now without a sprinkler in it. So that's part of an essential thing. With that, we would replace the fire alarm panel and alarm system. Right now, if the alarm system goes off, current alarm system can tell you exactly what alarm, where in the building the problem is. Our panel just doesn't do that because it's just old. It's served us well, but it needs to be replaced. Classroom door hardware. Things have changed. The way we do things have changed. The drills that we do for students are different. Right now, we don't have the ability to lock all classroom doors from the inside in an easy manner. So this would do that. Push of a button, lock the inside door, and then our staff is going to handle it from there. They're trained. They know what they're doing. This is a safety feature for the building that we feel needs to happen. Along that safety venue, we would reconstruct the front entrance of the building. Right now, most of you have been to the elementary school. You walk in the front entrance, you get buzzed into the building, you walk right to the gym. It's right in front of you. There it is. That's not how you would design a school today. You should be buzzed into the building, but you should go to the office and interact with office staff or administration. So this would create a new entrance in the building and a vestibule that's designed by Homeland Security in the safety audits that we've had them do. So essentially, you'd walk in the front door, interact with the office staff. For most people, they wouldn't have to come in the building. My son forgot his lunch. I'm just going to drop it off at the office and go right back out where I came. If you have to be buzzed into the building, there's a second set of doors that you come in. You will have already gotten your visitor badge. You know exactly where you're going. Somebody will take you there if need be. So it's very secure. If you want to see that design in action, we actually built that in Dunbarton as part of their renovation and addition project 3 years ago. That vestibule and situation that they have is exactly what we want to do at the elementary school. Right now, the egress off of the second floor is substandard. Right now, if kids are going to go to recess, they basically walk around the building, which is not what we want to have. The egress to the playground and to emergency egress from the second floor is actually through the library. So we would create a new second floor egress to assist with that and make that better. The big part, in terms of space, is a proposed 8 classroom addition. So if I'm looking at the school building, it's to the right of the building, and we'll look at the conceptual plan in a second, but it's at the right side of the building, in between the bus loop and the access that goes around to the back of the building. In conjunction with that, we would take our 2 smallest classroom spaces on the first and second floor that are just over 800 square feet, and we would carve those up into 3 small group instructional spaces. So we would put 2 walls into those spaces, create smaller group spaces. And we did that at Dunbarton as well. It's worked extremely well, and we'll talk about that as well in a second. There's 2 sets of multi-purpose bathrooms in the building, boys and girls on the first floor, boys and girls on the second floor. We would renovate those. They just need to be renovated. If you take a tour of the building, which we'll talk about at the end, we'll take you in there, and I think you would agree that probably needs to happen. Smoke and fire suppression. We have some storage areas and certainly the boiler room that if you were building those spaces today, they would have certain types of smoke and fire separation by code. They don't have that now. We would add that to the project. In the first floor and second floor, in the middle part of the building, those rooms were built as an open concept. So the walls in those spaces that divide the classrooms are what we call non-movable partition walls. You know, they were just put up to make those classrooms. There's no electrical capacity in those walls at all. So what we would do is remove those walls, build sheetrock walls, and drop electrical into those spaces. So that's what that one is. A couple of the next ones are very detailed, kind of guts of the building things. There's some registers in the HVAC system that need to be replaced. The gear switch to the building. I learned a lot about gear switches and electrical devices that I did not know before, but the building has an electrical capacity. And what we need to determine early in the project, if it passes, is do we have the electrical capacity in the building to add a bunch of outlets, to add a new HVAC system for the addition, and to actually add 8 classrooms and add a fire suppression system as well. All take power. So can we do that? Do we need to replace the existing electrical gear switch? Can we add a smaller one? Can we just tie into the existing building? That's part of the project to make that determination and figure out where we go from there. School data centers are technology-based. As this building has become more technologically advanced, we use more technology in the classroom. We've added wiring, data, wireless. We have data centers at the first and second floor. They are in locations where you would never put them if you were building a new building. They're in the custodial closets. So we like to relocate those, get them away from a bunch of water. There's also the roof access is right next to one of them. We go up and down that ladder. So we like to move those. There's a hot water loop in the building that isn't as efficient. We'd like to replace that, redo that, especially in the kitchen area, which uses a lot of hot water every day. Replace some classroom sinks. That's pretty straightforward. Replace the boilers. And then a new elevator. Right now, the building has an elevator, but it was built to 1979 standards. It's very narrow. We cannot get an emergency gurney in that, so if there was a problem and somebody needed to come out in an ambulance with a gurney from the second floor, we'd have to go in from the second floor. We couldn't go up the elevator because it doesn't fit. We have students with disabilities with mobility issues whose wheelchairs and mobility devices have gotten bigger over time. I think they're just bigger than they used to be. They have better capacity. They're better for kids. They just fit in that elevator, or they don't, and we have to work out how to get students to the second floor. So the new elevator would either be in the existing shaft, and we would just expand that, or both of the construction companies we've worked in have proposed putting that new elevator in the addition, which would make it an easier construction and probably be similar in cost. So those are essentially the items in the project. In your handout, there's actually a couple things, as I mentioned, that aren't part of the project anymore. Preschool classroom renovation, we were going to bring the preschool back from the high school. We eliminated that from the project. It's working well over here. We don't need to do it. Why spend the money to do that? We were going to do remote card entry to the school. That's not part of this project. We got a grant to do that here at the high school. We're going to keep looking at those kind of grant funds and continue to look at those opportunities and try to do that outside of the taxpayer funding. And then we talked about parking. We talked about increasing parking and renovating that. We're not doing that as part of the project either. So project focus, I keep talking about as I drive home, and I try to put things in buckets as I do when we create a budget and when we do a lot of the things out of my office. I try to put things, simply. And for me, there's a security aspect to this, a safety aspect to the project, and a space aspect. And for me, I kind of put them in those buckets up there. Obviously, there are infrastructure things that have to do, like register and boiler things and things, but those are something. So in your packet, and we're going to post this we'll post all of these things on the website as well. Here's the conceptual drawing. So just pointing out a couple of things here. Here is the front entrance to the building. So essentially, right now, that entrance, as I said, goes right to the gym. It's kind of at an angle, but it goes to the gym. We would essentially move that entrance to the right and ram right into where Lori's office is. And then all of the administrative offices and a new conference room and things would be to the left. You would come in that front door, you would turn to the left, there's our staff, interact with them, hopefully very quick, drop it off, get out. It makes the office more efficient. We would renovate that space and make that more efficient. Here's the gang bathrooms. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Multi-person bathrooms. Sorry. I use old terminology sometimes. Multi-purpose bathrooms here. Those are for a variety of classrooms, and those are there. Here is the classroom addition, and here's that one classroom that we feel is the most undersized and kind of not the most conducive to modern learning. It's got 5 walls, it's just not a great space, but our staff makes it work because they're great. But we would carve that up into, as I said, three different spaces. So for the second floor, same thing here, those bathrooms. Here's that classroom, same as, and the 4 classrooms out front. And just one last thing, there's the egress that we would have to the playground and for emergency purposes. Okay, so there is what we as a committee and then the board talked about in terms of costs. We had 2 companies that we had come forward and give cost estimates, not a bid, but cost estimates on the list of project items that you have in front of you tonight and that we went over in the proposal. They were almost identical in price. They costed things out very differently, used different kind of methods, but kind of came to the same conclusion. With that, it was recommended that we have an owner's contingency for unexpected items that come up. We have to design the project and engineer it. That may or may not be a cost that is low, but we've got to find and we've got to do that for certain parts. And then we would like to have an owner's rep, the old terminology, a clerk of the works, but an owner's rep that's our representative that's going to be on site multiple times a week to handle things that come up and be our eyes and ears on the ground. The estimate is an 18-month project. Could be a couple months earlier, could be later than that, but the estimate from both companies is about an 18-month project. I think the days of passing a project in March and having the project completed in August are over because of supply chain things, because of staffing, and just that's the construction industry that we find ourselves in. I think revenue. 2 revenue streams, so we have capital reserve funding still available. I just want to point out that this last summer we did the roof of that building. It's brand new, 35-year warranted roof. We replaced all of the HVAC units on that roof. It was a $1.6 million project that we paid for with capital reserve funds. Essentially, about a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, when the committee started work, we had about $2.2 million saved available for the project. So this last summer, took a bunch of that money out, did 2 major components to the project that we knew were essential to the project. The voters were super supportive and voted for that at the last annual meeting. We did that this summer. We still have $600,000 in that capital reserve, so we would propose to take $500,000 out of that funding just to lower the amount of debt service and make that debt service as low as we could. And so the bond on this, and we put the bond schedule in your handouts, $12.4 million. We've got a proposal estimate for that from the bond bank. First year of any bond that's sold by the bond bank is interest only. You make one interest payment. So at this year's annual meeting, that'll be part of the project cost, is that first interest payment. And then the second year you pay principal and 2 interest payments, and that's about $1.3 million, which works out to $1, almost exactly, $1 on the tax rate for that. A couple things that I just wanted to maybe do a little more detail on. So the additional classroom space, we talked about needs for today. So today we have small instructional spaces and small groups that are taking place in the hallway. We have a video, you'll see a snapshot of that. You know, there's a classroom space in the building where there's 4 specialists working out of the same space, math and reading specialists. Not that conducive to that small group learning that we want to have take place. Music's on the stage. It has been on the stage since I've been here, since 2005. We would like to have that stage back, so it's usable for, you know, whatever the elementary school wants to use that for, which we haven't been able to do. We've got OT and PT spaces that are in very small areas. They need to spread out. They need to, you know, what their program is all about is movement, and they're not able to do that right now. They're actually in the space where that second floor egress would be punched through. It's a small space right now. So a lot of great things would happen if we just had more space. And so that's today. So then tomorrow, right? And tomorrow we'll talk about enrollment. I could actually do a presentation on enrollment and actually really like to do that for a long time, but I won't tonight. But I love enrollment projections, and we do our own. They've been pretty accurate, and we're pretty proud of how we do those, but we see enrollment growth coming at the elementary school and have seen it over the last few years. So let's talk about the additional classrooms, just another slide on that. Those classrooms would meet New Hampshire DOE standards, 900 plus square feet. We'd like them to be designed for 1,000 because that's the kindergarten standard. Also in that addition, we talked about having a bathroom in each one of those spaces. That makes the classroom space or makes the addition bigger. We decided to scale that back, and there are shared bathrooms between 2 classrooms. So 8 classrooms, but only 4 bathrooms for that addition. And then the renovated existing classrooms, I talked about those. We would take those classrooms and divide those up. What I want to point out is that those classroom spaces could easily be retrofitted back to classroom spaces if we needed them. We would just take down 2 walls. I couldn't do it, but somebody would do that. And we would renovate those back because we're going to design them in a way where that would be easy to do. In terms of enrollment, you know, just a couple slides on that. Our first year of all-day kindergarten was 2015-16, and our enrollment in K through 4 was 412. And we like to talk about ranges. We talked about what's our low class, what's our high class. So our low class was 78, high was 87, and our kindergarten enrollment was 79. So this year's current school climate is 512 students. And again, that range, 90 to 111. And then our kindergarten enrollment this year was the highest it's been in several years. It was 109 students. We actually projected that very close, and I'll kind of go into why we did that and how we were able to do that in another slide. But we do estimated enrollment for our budget every year, and our estimate for next year is 530 for the school. Low of 94, high of 114, and our kindergarten enrollment we have estimated at 111. Kindergarten enrollment, we use one data point to assist us with that, and that's the resident births in the town of Bow. You know, we go to the New Hampshire Division of Vital Records to get that information. We use the mother's resident area, so the dad we don't look at, but we look at the mother. And then we gather that and how many births were there from January 1 to December 31. So calendar years 2011 to 2016, and we have a graph in your packet showing that history of births. The average births in Bow was 44. From 2017 to 2022, the average has been 71. So what we do with that is we take that data point and we go 5 years from it, and we look at how many kindergarten students enrolled. So the last year that we did this, we had 66 births in 2017 and 109 kids showed up. So it's about 40, 45 is the difference. So we use that to try to, instead of just throwing a number out there for kindergarten, we try to look at that and figure out, and we use a couple other things, but we figure that out for our enrollment. So, in terms of next steps, in terms of the project, we'll give you a tour. You know, I can stand up here and I can tell you, man, you know, you've got to go, you see this classroom and it's not ideal. It's got 5 walls, it's really small, and we're going to carve it up into 3 small classroom spaces. Come and see that classroom. Like, just come and see it. See where the additions propose to go. See what the front entrance looks like, and that we have 2 administrators in the same office right now, working out of the same office. I'm glad they get along, but they're in the same office. So if one of them's having a meeting, you know, like I have confidential meetings from time to time, the other one just has to vacate and find something to do. This is going to correct those little things, and then also correct a lot of big things. So come. Take a tour. We'll work it around your schedule. You know, Lori's great. She's given tours to any group who's wanted to come. We gave a tour to the budget committee. I think that was helpful to them to see the project. You know, we'll give those tours. We'll come and do this. We'll come and talk to your group, present, you know, answer questions, do whatever you want to do. Just let us know. We're going to put all of this stuff on the website tomorrow. The annual meeting is obviously the next step officially in the project. That's March 16th. I don't want to suppose that everyone knows how annual meeting goes, so, you know, we have business that takes place at that meeting in order. You know, Article 1, you know, business Article 1 is going to be this project. It's a ballot vote, so when you check in as a resident, as a voter, you're going to get a ballot, yes or no, on it. Pretty simple ballot. After debate and discussion and questions on Article 1, the moderator will close discussion and you'll get to go vote. The ballot box will be right up here on the stage. Put your ballot in. Your decision on the project. The interesting thing about a bond vote is it's secret ballot. The ballot has to be open for an hour. So from the time that discussion ends and the moderator opens the ballot box, that's 1 hour that it's going to be open. And it needs a supermajority, because this meeting in March, if approving this project, is going to put onto future meetings an expense. So you need more than a majority for that. You need 3/5. Other than that, that's the annual meeting. A lot of things happen at annual meeting. I love annual meeting. It's one of my favorite days. But this particular one is different than other articles at annual meeting. I'm going to do one last thing before questions and comment. Kind of some pictures to what I talked about.
Bow Elementary School, our beloved BES, was originally built in 1979 and had an addition in 1991. Now in 2023, we have a proposal for an addition and renovation of this facility. The needs for this proposal are S's: safety, security, a sprinkler, and space. We have a great citizen committee that's been working on this for a number of years. We originally had it on the warrant in March of 2020 before it was delayed by the COVID pandemic. It's a $12.9 million project. It has an 8-classroom addition that will net 6 teaching classrooms, and we have enrollment that continues to grow in Bow. Other rooms in the building will be renovated to provide office, conference, and small instructional space. So we build 8 and we net 6 classrooms. The committee has been working on something that they have dubbed the list, which has been honed and refined to look at the need for each of the items on the list and to do so in a cost-effective manner. Item 1 is a sprinkler system. When originally built, the building did not have to have one, but now with a renovation of this side, code requires that. There are a number of items on the list related to security and safety, including communication, building access, and there are a number of space issues that need to be addressed in the renovation. Administrators share offices with a conference room. and that makes it difficult for the administrators to have the privacy they need to do their work. One of the pressing needs at Bow Elementary School is small instructional space. Presently, interventionists often meet with students at tables or desks in hallways, and there's a lack of privacy, and it's very distracting for them. There's a lack of storage space. Hallways are cluttered, especially in the wintertime, and things are stored out in hallways instead of where they should be. The music classroom is on stage, which abuts the cafeteria, which makes it difficult to use that space. We're looking to put sinks in every classroom to help the cleanup process, because sometimes elementary education can get a little messy. The elevator is old, it breaks down, and we cannot fit an ambulance gurney in it, which is a need for the building. Access to the building, especially to the playground areas, and making sure we have secure access to the building is part of the project. And then the bones of the building are being looked at also. Since the pandemic, the roof and the HVAC system were done out of capital reserve, but it's time to look at this project as a complete overall renovation and addition.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming and comment and questions, and we'll be happy to answer anything. Oh, do I call on you? Go ahead.
Well, I'm vertically challenged, so. Elena Colby, 5 Fieldstone Drive. I was wondering if we could get more information on the fire chief's impressions. There are concerns about the storage in the hallways, boots in the hallway, lack of sprinkler system. I didn't know if he had, I know he's not here this evening, but I didn't know if he had filled you guys in on anything in more detail regarding the safety of those items.
Go ahead.
Okay. As Dwayne mentioned, Chief Burnham was at most, if not all, of our meetings, and he was the one that brought up a lot of those concerns himself. They've been really lenient with us on some of these issues, knowing that we were in the process of doing the forming the committee, and with the hopes that we'd be coming up with the renovation, and as part of that, we would be cleaning up the hallways and addressing the sprinkler system.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is, again, the committee, they come up with things that I don't even think, I've never even thought of certain things. And one of the things the committee came up in, and Chief Berman was part of that, is, we have a suppression system not that far from the elementary school. Big, huge tank in the ground with a water capacity that handles an 83,000 square foot building. Is it possible that we can run the elementary suppression system off of that system? And that's something that we're excited to look at, because if we can do that, it saves on buying a pump. We don't have to put a tank in the ground. We don't have to, we still have to do all of the other things inside of the building, but can we piggyback on that? And, only a chief, I think, would think of something like that and would bring up something, because he's seen, I'm assuming, systems like that. There's obviously things that we have to do, to get blessing and things from the state fire marshal. The sprinkler obviously is going to be one of those. So, there's some processes we have to do with that. Jeff?
Hi, Jeff Knight, 2 Peasley Road. A couple things. One, can you take a look at the bond schedule that you put in our packet? I remember when we were talking about the bond schedule, it's estimated that the bond would go out at 5.5%. And there is a notation here that one went out in June at 3.38%. And then I think when we were having conversations, there was one that went out in January of this year.
Yeah.
And what was that rate?
Yeah, it was under 4 as well.
It was
It was
three.
Well, they sell 4 different kinds of bonds, 5, 10, 20. Well, actually, they have 15 sometimes. 5, 10, 15, 20, and they'll sell 30s. And all of them have different rates.
Right, 20.
So,
I think it was a 20-year.
yep, that was still under 4. It was like
Yeah.
3, I'm going from memory, like 3.7, I think it was.
3.7 or 3.75.
Yep.
So if you were to extrapolate something like that to a bond that we got in June or July, you know, I know it's a lot of money for the taxpayers. The interest rate here is shown at 5.5%. It shows over the 20-year period, $7.13 million. You know, if that was to decrease by 20 or 25%, that would be a significant savings to the taxpayer. And can you just take 1 minute to explain to us why you use 5.5% as a conservative rate?
Sure, and that you just said it at the end. The bond bank prepares those debt schedules. They do those all the time, free of charge. They'll use a conservative number because they don't want for us to put this in front of our folks, which we're doing tonight, and then have it come in higher. So you look at it and say the total price of the bond issue is 19.5 million, but it was actually 20 because they had a interest rate that was too low in their estimate. So they always go high. They also do that because in the warrant article, as we mentioned, the first year interest payment is part of that warrant article. So as part of that article, we're asking for $300,000 for the first year interest payment. If they're not correct or too low on their interest calculation, you won't have raised enough in your first year to handle the first year interest cost. So the bond bank has always been conservative. They're a great benefit, great organization for municipalities and schools, but that they've always done things that way.
The second comment is the type of process that I think you've talked about and the board, I think, has accepted as far as using a construction manager instead of a strictly general contractor type. A construction manager could potentially save some money for the project, and you're only going to do what you want to do. You're not stuck with, 20 items. If something does go awry with a construction management type of a process, you have more flexibility. Could you speak on that for a moment?
Sure. I think that's, for a project like this, I think the construction management's, the only delivery method that is going to work effectively. It's going to be a very collaborative, process for us. It's almost a construction management company. Us, the architect, we're all on the same, team. I think an old GC process, there was kind of an adversarial relationship, and I just don't see that with CM. I also think if we can get this project and do it effectively, do everything on the list, and we have money left over at the end of the project, we would just leave those funds in capital reserve. That's one of the flexibilities of the warrant article. If we could get to the end, project comes in under budget, we don't withdraw as much money from capital reserve. That helps future projects, down the road for the school district. One of the other things, just to, kind of a preview of the annual meeting, we want to repurpose the capital reserve that we have right now to add the high school to it so that we can use all 3 buildings with the same capital reserve, which we are limited right now to do. That would increase flexibility for us and allow those funds to be used across all of our 3 schools. But CM, it's a process that I haven't used because, I think because I'm old and we haven't done a project in a long time. We use that traditional method, and times have changed since 2005 when I first came here and we did the BMS renovation. So this is a much, I think, more effective way, more efficient way to deliver a project like this.
One last comment is regarding bonding versus using capital reserve. I don't know how I say this, but as far as capital reserve goes, we have not done the greatest job historically about putting money aside for future needs of the school. And I think I've heard in the last 3 months or so that there is a commitment to the school to come up with capital reserve sheets and put money aside. I think the budget committee and I think the school board has agreed to put $1 million aside this year towards future projects, and that if we're going to ever get something done at the elementary school, unfortunately, we need to bond to do that. We don't have the luxury of taking money out of capital reserve, but I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the future, with capital reserves placed for future projects, there won't be the need for a bond coming down the road?
I'll tell you, that's my commitment. That's my goal. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have, hopefully, another decade to work here. I love working here. That's what I've tried to tell the board and administratively and people who work here. This is hopefully for me the last bond that I would ever want to propose. The interesting thing about the school district is since this building was built in 1997, the school district has had 2 bonds total. One's paid off. One gets paid off in 2026-27, which is when the Memorial School bond is paid off. So there hasn't been a lot of bond proposals put out there, and certainly not a lot of bonds passed. So, to have 3 bonds proposed, in the district for 30 years, I think there are school districts that have 3 or 4 bonds open at the same time. We haven't had to do that. But I am hopeful and committed to this being the last one that would be a part of my career.
And I think as the board sits now, that is also the commitment now of the board as it sits now, but we never know the makeup of the board. But those that sit before you right now, that is why we tried so hard to get our a CIP together so that we could start working to get some funds put aside.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Well, I want to thank everyone for coming again. We've recorded this. We're going to post it so people who decided to watch Seinfeld instead of coming to hear me, they can do that. We're going to post all of the documents as well. Just a couple of things, for us, because we always have a lot of things going on, that I would just, I just want to, give a shout out before we adjourn and things. On Saturday, we have 6 awesome high school teams competing at the state championship for VEX Robotics. I don't think sometimes they get the recognition that athletics get, but that's a great Saturday. If you want to go over to Manchester Community College, that would be great. They're playing for the state championship for a trip to Dallas. And Saturday here in this building, we're hosting the Division III State Wrestling Championships. That is, again, an awesome day. If you don't know anything about wrestling, which I don't, I've been to the state championship a number of times. I plan on coming on Saturday. It's great. It is an awesome day. And so I encourage you to come. We've always got stuff going on. Again, you want to take a tour of the elementary school, we're going to make that happen. And if you want us to come and present and speak to your groups, we'd be happy to do that as well. So thanks for coming again, and take care.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dwayne.